By now, you've probably seen the viral video of Brianna Rivers punching Savannah Craven. Now, Savannah Craven is a pro-life influencer. She was interviewing people in the streets of Harlem. She stopped Brianna, started to have a conversation with her, and at some point, completely shocking, Brianna punches Savannah in the face or on the sides of, I don't know where she punched her, but it was somewhere in the face. And you can see an image of Savannah bleeding. Now, this situation is definitely tragic. I don't condone violence in any kind of way, and it's also very unfortunate. And when I was reflecting on it, I realized that there are PR lessons for both parties, right? There's a PR lesson on the part of the person who would be interviewed, and there's certainly a lesson or a tip for the person who would interview other people. As I get started, I want to say that it is really easy in today's social media landscape to look at another person's life and to offer suggestions. But each of us, if our lives were examined under a microscope, there are things that you could find wrong about everyone, right? There are things that we all wish we could have done differently or handled differently. And so I say that because my intention is not to jump on either party or the other, but simply to draw a couple PR tips that might be helpful in our day-to-day lives. So the first PR tip is for people who would be interviewed. And the first thing that I want you to know is you can always walk away. You can always say no. I also think it's critically important that you remember that if you are going to be interviewed in any kind of setting, right? You want to know who's interviewing you. You want to know their interview style. You want to know how the content is going to be used. You want to know the audience that they're going to share the content. You also want to think about whether giving the interview is going to advance your work, right? Is it in furtherance of your message or your mission? If you don't know these things, you can't legitimately decide whether or not you are going to give an interview. But in our society, it is really easy to think that being interviewed is a flex. It's not a flex. The more exposure that you have, the more scrutiny. The other thing is you could do an interview for 2 minutes, and that 2 minutes can frame and shape how people see you for years to come. For that reason, I don't think that interviews should be taken lightly, whether it's a podcast interview, whether it's a sit-down interview with the cable news network, whether it's your local channel. All interviews, every time that you are on camera, it has to be approached with a degree of sensitivity, a degree of intentionality. And I'm sorry, if you're walking down the street and someone puts a microphone in your face and there's a camera following them, that is reason all the more to say no, right? Because you don't have time to think about what you could be asked. You don't have time to research the person who's interviewing you. You don't have time to check in with yourself to find out if you're even in a good state to deliver an interview. The truth of the matter is, how you show up is dependent on a lot of factors. Now, certainly some of us have different orientations and different makeups than other people. But if you're in a bad mood, that is not the time to do an interview. If you are not well rested, that is not the time to do an interview. I think that all of us have to spend time learning our proclivities, learning our strengths, especially where media is concerned. If you know that you are temperamental or that there are certain topics that, you are more sensitive or you're triggered by, you don't want to do an interview on those topics. Certainly not an interview that was unplanned, not an interview that you didn't have time to process and to research and to prepare for. So that's my tip for people who would be interviewed. 1, you can always walk away. 2, you should not accept any interview request, regardless of the format, if you don't have time to think about those things that I just mentioned. Who's the person who's interviewing you? What's their style? How is the content going to be used? What's the outlet like? Who's their audience? All those things are critical factors in determining whether or not you want to grant the interview. The next tip is really for the person who would grant or who would interview someone else. And that tip is that you have to know as much about them as they know about you. If you think about cable news networks, when you turn on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, with a lot of national programs, before a person is on air, before we see them, often there has been a pre-interview. The pre-interview takes place with the person who's being interviewed, or if it's a really high profile person, it might be their publicist, right? And the pre-interview is an opportunity for the producer to tell the person who's going to be interviewed, here's what I'm going to ask you. Here are the themes that we're going to touch on. And the purpose of that pre-interview is to allow both parties to think about the engagement. For the producer, it's one opportunity for them to determine, do I want to go forward with putting this person on camera? For the person who's being interviewed, it's an opportunity for them to say, am I the best person to talk about this? Or what research do I need to do in order to speak credibly and confidently about the issue? So before you ever see someone on national television for a major interview, there's already been a pre-interview, and that is important for both parties. In today's political landscape, religion and politics are hotly debated topics. Gone are the days where you could have a disagreement with someone and the parties would agree to just disagree, especially not around issues of religion and politics. We're just not in that environment. For that reason, you also don't know the temperament of the person who you are speaking to. So to me, it's very risky to be someone who is interviewing another person on the street and you have no idea who that person is. The final thing that I'll say, and I hope this comes out the right way, is I sometimes feel like people who are pro-life, and I'm pro-life, but I think that sometimes people who are pro-life have a sense of moral superiority. Like just because you believe a certain way, you are better than other people, or you have a right to dictate how other people live their lives. And just because of that stance, you feel like you can treat people any kind of way, or you can talk to people any kind of way. I don't agree with that. I think that if you're a Christian, your number one goal should be to draw people and to point people to Christ. That's your goal. And you don't do that by baiting people. You don't do that by being scornful, by mocking them. That's just not how you do it. That may make good TV. It may boost your views. But what does that really do to draw people to Christ? And there's a scripture that talks about if a person is offended, how difficult it is to draw them. And I felt like the woman who was doing the interview, I felt like she was a bit nasty, and I felt like it was unnecessary. You can disagree with someone, but that does not give you a right to treat them any kind of way. Now, certainly Savannah didn't deserve to have or to experience physical violence. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying that just because you are pro-life, that does not give you the right to look down on other people, to criticize other people, and to talk to them any kind of way. That's just not okay. You don't deserve violence. No one does. But you also should not allow your positions and your views to feel like you have a hall pass to treat people any kind of way. It's not okay. Because even if you line up with the Bible on one issue, but you treat people like trash, that's another issue. And that matters to God as well. So when I watched that video, I saw wrong on both sides. Obviously, the violence was not okay. It was uncalled for. It was unjustified. And I also felt like how Savannah treated this lady in terms of, you just said this with the camera. I didn't think that was cool either. So that's my perspective. Those are my thoughts. If you like this content, please feel free to subscribe. You can leave a positive comment, or you can also share this video. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.